But we're going to start out with our lead stories.
But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be.
You can't take the
CRISPR.
You can't take the
Cas9.
We signed off on Friday. It's been a few days since we had an episode, but as soon as we signed off, this story hit the news wire, and so we start off with that today, and it's from metro.co.uk. Do you want to do this one, Basil? Because I got the next one.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to.
Please.
Okay, this is coming from metro.co.uk, so you know it's true. And the headline reads like this: Gene editing experiment turns fluffy hamsters into aggressive mutant rage monsters. Rah. Gotta love it. Thanks, metro.co.uk. A team of scientists in the U.S. have accidentally created overly aggressive mutant hamsters following a gene editing experiment. Using the controversial CRISPR technology, researchers at Georgia State University were examining a hormone called vasopressin and its receptor AVPRA1A. They opted to try to remove the latter from a group of Syrian hamsters, with the expectation it would increase bonding and cooperation between the lovable little critters. That's because AVPRA, I will call it, that's AVPR1A. I'm calling it AVPRA. That's because AVPRA is understood to regulate things like teamwork and friendship, as well as dominance and bonding. Their expectation proved to be wrong. Very wrong. We were really surprised at the results, said Professor H. Elliott Albers, the lead researcher on the study. Quote, we anticipated that if we eliminated vasopressin activity, we would reduce both aggression and social communication. Quote, but the opposite happened. The academics found the adorable bundles of fluff turned into mutant rage monsters, exhibiting, quote, high levels of aggression towards other same-sex individuals. All hamsters, regardless of genotype or sex, exhibited aggression, including chasing, biting, and pinning, when exposed to non-aggressive same-sex conspecific in a neutral area. Arena. Professor Albert admitted the results of the experiment were a, quote, startling conclusion. Now, here in the article, they take some photos from the study of just these aggressive little guys. It's like action shots of hamsters wrestling each other and fighting each other. Which is just so adorable. The scientists chose to experiment with Syrian hamsters because, unlike mice, they have a social organization that is similar to humans. Professor Albert explained, quote, even though we know that vasopressin increases social behaviors by acting within a number of brain regions, it is possible that the more global effects of the AVPRA receptor are inhibitory. Quote, we don't understand this system as well as we thought we did. Oh, good job, science. I'm kind of glad they figured this out, but it is also terrifying because, they may be acting as if this was an accident and they don't know how, they weren't expecting it. And but if you consider the benefits of, having a biochemical switch that you can fiddle with in a population that turns them all aggressive and antisocial and rageful. There's just literally so many movies about this exact thing. So figuring out how exactly this works, quote unquote, on accident, I would say perhaps they think it's a happy accident, those lizard overlords, has some terrifying implications for, possibly the mass population being affected by such a hormonal imbalance.
Well, it's interesting how it always devolves. Anytime there's a change made, it doesn't seem to make anything better ever, really.
They very rarely, so rarely, Gons, do we experience the feeling of reading an article about CRISPR experiments and being like, oh, wow, they did a good thing.
Yeah, they figured some things out. Great. Sometimes the story can mask itself as such, but normally when you look into the details, it's not that. But this article, really, the story it touches on sort of the backbone of Canary Cry NewsTalk. You know, the thing that separates us from a lot of different news analysis shows and, you know, even Christian shows is the sort of weird worldview we hold about the origin of life and the history and the reality of the mythology that is left in history. And, you know, it all kind of goes back to Genesis 6 in the Bible. And, you know, for those of you who might be new, there's a part in there in verse 4 where it talks about the Nephilim who were on the earth in those days. And it was from this weird unholy union between the daughters of men and the sons of God. They're called the B'nai Ha-Elohim in the Hebrew. And it's throughout the Old Testament, it's mentioned that the descendants of the Nephilim, somehow they're able to procreate and descend. They have descendants anyway. And a lot of the biblical conquest language that a lot of atheists and skeptics have pointed out is, oh, look at God, he's a genocidal maniac. A lot of that had to do with trying to get rid of like the genetic abomination, potentially, with this sort of presupposition that was going on. And you see that kind of repeated in patterns with the 6 toes, 6 fingers thing that we've touched on in multiple episodes over the past, as well as people that are greater and taller, as it says in Deuteronomy 128, the sons of the Anakim. And so, you know, it's something that occurs a lot in the scriptures, and it's something that weirdly sort of proves that our point about where we are in history and how, you know, I think our community is the most well equipped when it comes to dealing with these changes happening with CRISPR and genetics and
a special perspective that you don't get a lot. I mean, even in the sort of average American church, it's not really touched upon that, you know, the story of Noah and the flood, you know, there's not a whole lot of reasoning except for God was mad at people.
It's a Sunday school, you know, throwaway kind of story.
But
like, the animals and
But if you dig into it and you really take a look at the original languages and some of the cultural implications at the time, it's quite straightforward that there was some genetic tampering going on that was causing a lot of the trouble on Earth. And God was just like, yeah, hey guys, I don't think this is a very good idea. Let's just start over with this one.
Right.
And so it's you know, on sort of a cosmological level, it can be a little concerning when you got humans playing around with DNA, the code, the building blocks,
the Legos
of life. Mm-hmm. Yes, because you know, as we can see, story by story doesn't really turn out very well. Very rarely do we get a positive story about tampering with this stuff. But we also have, you know, a biblical account of just how God might feel about this sort of thing.
And part of the story of his second coming and everything is to kind of reset that all or fix it all again, you know, because it seems like that's the pattern here, that, you know, a lot of the imagined dystopian sort of, you know, Mordor type of scenery or reality, that kind of thing might have been like an actual physical reality if these beings, these descendants or whatever genetic sort of abominations from, you know, the kinds in creation were, you know, sort of allowed to run free and rule. So it's just an interesting, I don't know, thought experiment for some. And
if you think that this type of thing won't have an effect on current events and isn't relevant to modern news analysis, you are mistaken, my friend. And that's why we got to keep it top of mind sometimes.
Yep.
So you're all welcome.
Yep.